Thanks for coming to my talk. So I'm here to tell you everything you need to know about serverless in 10 minutes, which is going to be really challenging. I'm Steve Faulkner at South Pole Steve on Twitter. So if you need to find me anywhere on the internet, that's who I am. I did go to the South Pole once, but that's not enough time today to talk about that. I work for Bustle. As Mary said, I'm the director of platform engineering. If you're not familiar with Bustle, it's an online women's media company. We have about 50 million unique readers a month. So it's pretty big scale. And I'm here to talk about serverless. So the first thing I have to say about serverless is it's a ridiculous buzzword. I'll fully admit that. There's even a Medium post that says so you know it's true. Buzzword of 2016 it was called. So serverless. And everybody's first reaction is like, oh my gosh, of course there's still servers, you're an idiot. And I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. Like, there are still servers. They're not going anywhere. If you were panicked about the servers, they're still here. But behind the terrible buzzword, I didn't come up with it, there is actually some cool stuff. And really, in my mind, the big idea of serverless is that platforms have matured enough that you can build entire applications without having to deploy your own servers. That's it. So no more servers. Well, servers somewhere, but behind the platforms. If you've seen anything as a service, then you're familiar with this already. This isn't like a new idea. I don't think this is revolutionary. It's just they're really getting good now. We have all these things, database as a service, caching as a service, logging as a service, all these things. Even servers as a service, that's what EC2 is, serverless servers. But there's always this one missing part, and the missing part is where does your business logic go? And people have been kind of struggling with this, and that's usually where you have to write your own app, right? You have to deploy something, and the primitives that are available to you are servers and processes. Well, not anymore. So I talked about the big idea of serverless. Well, the small idea of serverless is functions as a service, right? So this is the platform that we finally want to build our applications actually arriving. It's here, it's ready to go. I happen to think this is a really good model for thinking about web applications. If you think about your app as a function, it takes in a request, it outputs a response. Makes sense to me. There's a bunch of people that are offering this as a service. Microsoft has Azure functions. Google has a product that's in alpha. IBM has this thing called OpenWhisk that is actually an open source functions as a service. So if you want to know how this stuff works under the hood, definitely check it out. This talk's not about any of those things. This talk's actually about Amazon Web Services. And people get disappointed when I say this, but I just got to be honest that Amazon is basically like leagues ahead of everybody else right now in this space. And I'm going to spend a little more time talking about why. But I'm excited for everybody else to catch up because I think competition is good in this space. And I'd like to see better platforms that do functions as a service. So there's two parts to Amazon's functions as a service and serverless offering, Lambda and API Gateway, which is actually two different things, functions as a service and routing as a service. The reason we're actually talking about any of this today, even though functions is the interesting part, the routing layer is kind of what enable us to use functions to serve end user applications. So finally, routing was like unlocked the key of what serverless is. There's a couple critical points of Amazon's kind of set the bar in terms of a couple things that they do that everybody now is trying to catch up to. First, both of these services, you only pay per request. So this is really powerful. You're not paying for idle time or extra capacity. You only pay when stuff actually gets used. And it also scales magically with a little asterisk, because if anybody says something scales magically, you should be instantly skeptical of whatever they say. So I'll talk a little more about that later. Lambda, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but Lambda is really simple, actually. You write code. You zip it with all its dependencies, upload it to the cloud, and then it'll run your functions based on various events. You can write them in Node, Java, Python, C#. You can also kind of hack in any binary compiled language. So if you're a Go person or a Haskell person, you can do that as well. You're also going to get all this other stuff that you're going to want. So you're going to get versioning of functions, the ability to alias them, so having a beta version or a production version. You're going to get the ability to specify how much RAM and CPU your function can actually use. So servers are creeping back in a little bit. Logging and non-HTTP events. So if you're an Amazon person already, S3 bucket updates, Kinesis streams, DynamoDB updates, all kinds of good stuff, not just end user requests. API Gateway, second part, routing as a service. Not going to talk at all about how that works. All it does is just route requests. But you also get a bunch of other stuff you're going to want. Caching, throttling, authorization, ways of provisioning API keys, ways of doing logging and metrics, custom domains, SSL, all this good stuff that you need to run an application in the real world. So that brings us to Bustle. Basically, over the last year and a half, we moved all of Bustle's production infrastructure over to API Gateway and Lambda. If you go to bustle.com, you are hitting those services. 10 to 20 million Lambda calls per day is kind of the scale we're at. Like I said, we do about 50 million unique readers a month. The best part is it costs less than our old EC2 setup. So yeah, wins for everybody. If you want to actually check this out, go to bustle.com. This is what it looks like, and you're actually hitting API Gateway. And Lambda does server-side rendering here of JavaScript. This is our front end. This is kind of what it looks like. Sometimes we do hit S3 for some static assets. If you want to see our backend, that is also all serverless. Oops. It's publicly available. We use GraphQL. So go to graphical.bustle.com. You can play around with our API. And our API is basically the same architecture. JSON served up through API Gateway. All the business logic lives in Lambda. And we talk to DynamoDB and Redis. Another asterisk, because there may be some servers involved in the Redis part. Don't tell anybody. So the big question is, is it any good? Does it work? And I'm happy to report that it runs all of our production stuff. We're very excited about it. It is great for our team. It's been a big success. I'm going to highlight a couple maybe big points about why that's the case. So first is ops. And this is a thing that confuses a lot of people. They hear serverless, and they see this hashtag, and they go, oh, there's no ops. And this is a terrible hashtag. Don't use it. Go read everything that Charity Majors wrote about ops, and then stop using this hashtag, because everybody has ops. Ops is a fundamental part of engineering. No matter what you're doing, you have ops. And we still have ops in a serverless land, maybe just a little less ops. We still do benchmarking. We talk all the time about ways we might be able to fall back onto other services. We've done a bunch of load testing of Lambda and API Gateway. We're still working on getting good monitoring solutions. There's some third-party services that are springing up to help make this easier, but hashtag less ops. The best part is that frees up our developers to actually work on application features rather than worrying about how they're going to do deployments or operate our code. Scale. So I talked about scale before. The good news is that it's kind of true. It really does magically scale. You can basically tell Lambda, I want to start sending you, I've seen it go up to 500,000 requests per second pretty easily. You kind of got to tell Amazon when you're going to do that. But the good news is that it actually really works. And the benefit here is that less changes between 1 and 1,000 requests per second. Normally when you're engineering and you kind of have your little prototype toy, and then you're like, OK, we got to figure out how to operate this in the real world so it really operates at the scale we need. When less changes during that process, which is what happens with Lambda, it's really awesome. It makes our lives easier. It makes our ability to push stuff to production, we can do it faster. This is something not a lot of people are talking about yet, but the reverse direction. I think in a couple years, when you'll see all this legacy serverless stuff, people will start talking about this. But how many people in here have an EC2 box that they don't know if they can really turn on or off or on, or kind of sitting around and you're like, maybe I can turn that thing off? Yeah, you don't have to worry about that anymore. If you stop using it, you don't pay for it. If you use it just a little bit, you only pay for it a little bit. I think this is going to be one of the big benefits of serverless. Iteration is another one. Splitting your app up into individual functions, very similar to microservices. There's a lot of different opinions here about whether microservices and serverless are the same thing. But the point is that being able to deploy a single function at a time makes it really easy to try new things, experiment, work on individual, very small chunks of your app, keep everything decoupled. Super nice. Last part, tools. All right, so the problem with serverless is that you are not having access to the server means you're throwing away about 3 decades worth of tooling around deployment and monitoring and debugging that are battle tested and everybody knows exactly how they work. So something we're still trying to figure out. It's getting better. The open source community's kind of stepped in, so there's a bunch of tools out there. There's frameworks. There's a framework called Serverless Framework. There's one called Sparta that's specific to Go. Or you could just use the one we wrote called shep. So shep is our in-house Bustle framework for deploying and managing serverless applications. We are specific to Node, and I can talk about that afterwards, why we only use Node, but it uses Webpack to package and deploy your functions into AWS. You can get it on NPM right now. It's on GitHub. Check it out. Happy to answer any questions about that later. But that's it. That's everything you need about serverless in 10 minutes. So.
Thank you very much.